Hey, what's good, guys? I'm Josh.
And I'm Joe.
And we are the Healing Dudes.
On today's podcast, we have an awesome guest. Her name is Giorgia Lupi. She is a partner at Pentagram Design and created an awesome data design visual that was published in the New York Times. We're going to talk to her about her healing journey, through long COVID, where she's at now on her healing journey, and hopefully give you guys some inspiration on your own healing journey to believe that you can heal. So on this interview, we'll dive in deep with everything that she's going through and share some wisdom on our end. All right, today we are excited. We have an awesome guest. Her name is Giorgia Lupi, and we will be talking about all things healing, her healing journey, about what she does, which is really exciting. It's a little blend of what I grew up doing in design, and she's a very successful designer in this realm, and she's done some really cool stuff with her healing journey being published in the New York Times. And so we're really excited to have you. Thanks so much for joining, Giorgia.
Thank you, Joe and Josh, for having me. Thanks for the intro. I'm really thrilled to be here today.
Yeah,
absolutely. We're excited to have you.
Yeah, so let's kind of dive in. So I know we've chatted before, but for the people that don't know anything about you, if you kind of just want to introduce yourself, who you are, kind of what you're dealing with in terms of health and things like that, so people can kind of understand where you're at, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Giorgia. I'm Italian originally, but I live in New York and I moved here almost 12 years ago. And as you mentioned, Joe, I'm a designer. So I'm a graphic designer, but what I really like to do is working with data as like an entry point for the visual stories that I tell. So, I can call myself a data visualization designer, but I'm mostly really passionate in telling stories through this, material that we have that we can call data. And, we can elaborate on that. And in terms of my healing journey, I have been dealing with long COVID for the past 4 years. And I like to say, though, right now that I'm recovering from long COVID, which is a slightly different way of putting it.
Yeah. Right. I think that how we talk about our illness is always super important. And I love that you said that you're recovering, because I know that you're still very much in it. And, this is the first time that we've had someone on that's actually still in the thick of it. But I think that it adds a great contrast to be able to hear from people that are still in it. And our hope is that you get hope out of this, and also, that we're able to spread. I mean, that's the general idea of this podcast, is to give people hope that spurs them towards the belief that they can get better. And I absolutely believe, Giorgia, that you will get better. You have such a zest in you. Like, as we've talked in previous phone calls and stuff like that, like there's definitely something inside you. And I think that getting healthy and getting your life back and healing ultimately requires that, that we stay optimistic, even when it's very difficult, when it's tough to get off the couch and stuff like that. That mindset is so, so key.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it very much.
Of course.
Yeah. And I know your journey's been up and down, as both Josh and I's has been over the years. Josh has been sick for 17 years, 18 years at this point. Myself, it's been close to 20, and we have experienced healing, ourselves, but we're still in it. But, kind of want to hear about your journey and, some of the things that you went through when you first got COVID, what that was like trying to find answers, and, if you could break it down a little bit, and then give us a little bit of detail about, what are some of the things that have helped you and where are you at right now, so we can kind of, understand where you're at on your healing journey and just see how it's been working out for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Well, so I got COVID for the first time either in February or March 2020. I was traveling back and forth from Italy in February. And if you guys remember, Italy was struck with COVID a little earlier, but we kind of like didn't even know in February probably the COVID was around. And I was sort of like sick, like the before COVID kind of like, you're sick, but you go to the office anyway, like, you sort of like feel fine, but you have a little bit of a flu for a few weeks on and off. And then I got better. And, the reason why I say that I got COVID then is that because then in May 2020, I took an antibody test, the blood work to see if you had the COVID antibody.
Right.
I was positive. So sometimes back then I contracted COVID. I want to say that before getting sick with COVID, and probably you've heard these stories many, many times, I was healthy, super, just, active physically, doing vigorous yoga practice, dancing, running, averaging something like 15 to 17,000 steps a day. Because in New York,
Oh, wow.
New York, you walk around very much, and I love walking, doing snowboarding in the winter, swimming, working full time in my office, going out after work, packing my weekends with activities. And I think the more that I even talk about it, the more I understand that there might be something in that type of personality or, kind of like driven activity that might also be one of the reasons why I, got sick in a long term, but maybe we can talk about it later. So in the past 4 years, I got infected 3 times. So, the first infection was March 2020. Second infection was December 2021 after I got the 3 vaccines. And the last infection was November 2022. And I have to say that overall, my long COVID trajectory went down. So my first bout of long COVID was relatively mild in retrospect, even though at the time I thought this is horrible, but I was still very much functional. Then after this second infection, and, then I can go into details, I developed something different, I developed nerve pain. And so my 2022 was primarily dealing with extreme 24/7 pain. And then the reinfection, like the Omicron reinfection of the November 2022, what gave me POTS, mast cell activation syndromes, the true post-exertional malaise, and really ultimately what made me very, very limited in what I could do and symptomatic all the time. So my trajectory really, if you have to paint a chart, just, because what I do has been going down. So, for some people, the first wave, as they call it, of long COVID was really what got them worse. And then subsequent reinfections were not so terrible for their chronic illness. But for me, unfortunately, it's been the opposite. And in terms of what I've been doing, so, 2020, 2021, there wasn't a lot out there about long COVID necessarily. And so even finding a practitioner that could put everything together was a little hard. And of course, like many people, got a bunch of tests that, came back normal. And of course, not to blame any practitioners, but I got the usual, you should take anti-anxiety meds, you should just take a break. You should exercise and push through. So, and again, I really don't want to blame anybody because I feel that simply nobody knew. And then, I got actually formally diagnosed with long COVID, believe it or not, at the beginning of 2023. So the first couple of years, we thought it was long COVID, and I am pretty sure it was long COVID, but nobody really was able to tell me what it was. And I mean, then in 2023, early 2023, January, it became pretty clear that, I tested positive for POTS, that it's pretty straightforward. Your heart rate goes up to a certain degree. Mast cell activation, of course, I get reactions to pretty much all foods that I eat. Post-exertional malaise, it's so clear. And I actually found that I had this reaction to exertion that are delayed reaction to exertion through a spreadsheet of data that I've been collecting that then we can talk about. But, I have to say, and then I'll pause because, then maybe you guys ask me what you want to deep dive in. I think that it was a pretty desperate time for me, even if I kept on pretty much working. And, working has been all that I've done in the past 4 years, just really trying to hold on to my job. But I really feel right now that my attitude and, Josh, when you said you have this zest on you, I feel unfortunately up until recently, this driven personality was so driven to just find the medical cure, the solution. And I was so obsessed with finding the magic pill that will cure me tomorrow that sometimes I wonder if instead I, had a different attitude from the beginning, if I could have healed faster. And I'll pause and then talk about where I am right now.
So I think, first of all, and you hit the nail on the head. Joe had long COVID. I had COVID several times. Fortunately, it didn't turn into long COVID. But I think so often in the realm of healing, we want that quick fix. We want that pill that we can take that just makes it better. And we don't realize just how much work we have to do inside of ourselves, that when these chronic illnesses hit, and it's crazy. So all the symptoms that you talked about, the POTS, like I had POTS, I had Lyme, but for all chronic illnesses, it seems like the same symptom set is pretty much the same across the board. And that's why I really do draw the line back to dysregulation in our nervous systems. And I see so much of it. And as we begin to, and I hope that this does give you hope, because we have a lot of people that come in our class, and I would say probably 30 to 40% of them now are long COVID patients, whereas before it used to be Lyme, chronic fatigue, but now it's long COVID. And I think that there's a lot of other factors that are involved with actually getting long COVID. I don't think that it's just COVID. And now I think that there's a lot of other, like I said, things that happen in our nervous system that get it. And then it's just this perfect storm and we crash. And like I said, looking at you, you would have no idea, like, speaking, you have such a zest for life and stuff. And like I said, I think that is what's going to serve you well on this journey. But I do want to encourage you, because I know with all those symptoms, it can be very difficult to get up, to move, to walk, to exercise. Like you said, you're 17 to 20,000 steps a day. That's city living. And I'm sure now probably just taking a walk around the block is incredibly difficult. And I want to tell you just from my heart, and, if nothing else comes out of this podcast other than you leaving with the belief that you can get better, then it's been successful for us. When I first started walking again, because same thing, I would get exhausted. I'd be dizzy. I'd be lightheaded. I feel like I was going to pass out. Joe moved down here while he had long COVID, and we started walking around the block, and it was so hard. My housing development, there's a Publix or a grocery store out there, and we would walk around the grocery store just because and there was so many times that I would have to sit down on the curb and I put my hand in my face and I'm like, I just can't do it. I feel like I'm going to pass out. I'm exhausted. And he's like, are you all right, bro? Are you going to make it through? I was like, I don't know. I don't feel great. And I think he dumped his water on my head.
Yeah.
And he's like, one time. Yeah, he's like, get up. And it's honestly, Georgia, it was one step in front of the other. It was not to the point where I wanted to exhaust myself. And literally, and I was doing a lot of other things, but it became step by step by step. I was putting one foot in front of the other. I would get home. I remember back then when Joe was here, I'd be so exhausted after every walk that I would sit down on the couch and just be completely spent. And he'd be like, hey, do you want to go meditate? Or, hey, you want to do this? Hey, give me a couple minutes, man. Let me sit down. You remember that, Joe? Let me just sit down on the couch for a little bit. And that's just from a short walk. And now I get up, I walk 2 miles in the morning. I generally walk 1.5 miles, 2 miles at night. I'm back at the gym. I'm lifting weights. And this has only been in 1.5 years. And when I was sick, if you were to ask me if I ever thought that things would get better, I same thing. I had the same zest, the same smile, the same energy. But on the other side of that, I was exhausted. No one knew what I was going through because I always wanted to present well. I wanted to maintain that professional image, and because it was so important to who I was. And, once I let the weight of that down and decided to make my healing a priority, that I played the largest role in my healing. I went from doctor to doctor to doctor. Joe went from doctor to doctor to doctor. And most people go from doctor to doctor to doctor and get blood work. And for you, so I was a senior engineer for the federal government. So data was very important to me. And I needed, data-based solutions. Like, I couldn't just say the hearsay of someone else. And when we started to see how people were getting better, we're like, how can we apply this data to our daily routines and get better? Like, not use hoo-ha, but actually science-backed stuff and how it helped. And sure enough, just something as simple as walking. Walking's not what, helped heal me, but it was a big part of my recovery journey. So like I said, I just want to encourage you, while it might feel like it's very difficult now, it does get better. It does get better. I'll be honest, in full transparency, I'm having a very difficult day. I modified my walk. It's very rare that I have days like this, and I have no idea the cause. And I've stopped looking for the cause and stopped trying to put a label on a symptom. I don't Google it anymore. I don't go to support boards. I accept it for what it is. I surrender. I allow it to pass. And I remind myself that it's going to be a better day. And generally, that's how it worked. After 17 years of trying to figure out a solution for everything, or needing to make a doctor's appointment or get on a support forum and find answers, I found that just when I surrendered, because there are no pills. Unfortunately, with chronic illness, whatever it is, whether it's long COVID, Lyme, chronic fatigue, all these things, there's no viable treatment for it. And it's unfortunate because, you go to the doctors and they want to label you a psychiatric case when they don't. We present well, we look well, we go in there and, we're put together, we're not a wreck, we're not missing a limb or something like that. And I think that's the tough part. But like I said, everything that you need to heal, and I know that it's difficult when you're in it, is inside of yourself. It absolutely is. I don't know if Joe kind of wants to share a little bit of his long journey.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, that's the one thing about, the long COVID thing that happened with me. Since I'd healed in the past from Lyme disease, I had kind of known the things to do and not to do, even though I forgot them for years. The one thing that I didn't allow myself to do was stop moving. Even after long COVID, and I was like freaking exhausted, and I was dealing with all of the nervous system dysregulation and all that stuff. Even for months when I was again seeing all the doctors, and not really knowing and what to do, like, because again, I didn't know. Like I thought I'd relapsed in my illness, but and at the time, long COVID was still kind of a thing that was you had mentioned earlier, where it's like, yeah, it was a kind of a thing, but like no one really knew what it was. And so I didn't really put two and two together necessarily at first with COVID. But the one thing I knew and the one thing I remembered was like, do not stop moving. Do not stop moving. It is not helpful for your body to go into that state of like just sitting still all the time. So I walked a lot. Like even when I was like really, really sick and fatigued, I walked every day. Every day I would get out for multiple walks. And I think that helped me not to develop such a long stint of profound fatigue and physical symptoms, even though it was long, like even though it was many, many months and it was tough. And I would feel like I weighed like 1,000 pounds during some of these walks and whatever. I think I credit the not stopping moving to part of the reason why my long COVID journey also resolved quicker, than some of the, people that we talk to that have had it for years, like yourself or other people. It's because you feel so bad, you want to stop moving. Plus now with the fatigue, and now there is a lot of people that tell you not to do things physical. And we're not one of those. We don't really subscribe to that. But I'm curious, like, with your journey in dealing with the long COVID, you had mentioned, it was 3 different times you got COVID, and each time kind of got worse and worse. And then, I know that you had mentioned, talking to us, you tried the quick fix thing, you tried seeing different doctors, and you tried different routes and methods, similar to how Josh and I tried in the past. I guess part of the reason we connected is now we're all aligned with like the mind body stuff, the nervous system regulation. And I know that that's been part of your journey. I don't know if you want to expand on that, like how you got to that point on your healing journey, because I know that that's ultimately what we see is something that really helps a lot of people. And it takes sometimes years going through different things until you get there. So I'm curious how that worked for you.
Absolutely. And also just want to say, Josh, I'm sorry that you're having a bad day. I know how they feel, but I think, I think something that it's important for me to say, and maybe that's also like a bigger picture for your listeners, is that we hear it many times, but I think it's super true that healing is not linear. We do expect, and I've talked about it so many times already. I'm saying it more to myself too, that we expect these just very steady upward looking trajectory when every day
more like
a small way is better than the day before. And if I can walk 10 steps the day after, I can do 15, and then at some point I'll be on a mile. But instead, it's really very much up and down. And so I feel that you're back at square one. But it is not true, because I feel, to me, the way that I would look at it, it's really like it's almost like 2 parallel tracks, and they're always going forward. And sometimes you just like stop on the other one for a little
Yeah.
bit, because actually maybe even, I don't know, then we can talk about nervous system work, but like destroying the pathways of the other parts, but you have to be in it. And then you get back to your one, but you're still moving forward. So that's how I like think about it. But so how did I come to mind body work? Well, you know, again, I have seen countless practitioners, and I feel that I needed to see as many because, you know, of course, you go to your PCP that, you know, refers you to a neurologist, and then a cardiologist, and then an immunologist, and an allergologist, and then a functional medicine doctor, because, you know, you never know what test comes out of your gut situation. And then a rheumatologist, a pain management doctor that then, you know, refers you to something else to get evaluated for a cervical instability. So it really is not that, you know, I wanted to necessarily go to all these practitioners, but this, like, you know, this was the route. And then of course, also you are, you know, there was a place for me to be in those support groups and forums that you mentioned, Josh, that primarily some of those are based on, you know, conversations about medical issues and solutions and research. And, you know, then you see that somebody got like a great result with X, Y, and Z doctor, and then you try them, right? So, you know, it does feel very frantic. And, you know, looking back, now I think that I didn't need all of that, but I also feel that, you know, that is where I was, and, you know, it was to go through. Now, I don't want to say that there's nothing wrong physically with us. I mean, I think that I'm not a medical doctor, but I sort of became one, and I think that there are fundamentally things that are not working in our bodies, and I do support very, very much all the research that is going into finding treatments that can support healing. And I'm even right now working with, I'm really lucky, some of the lead researchers in long COVID in the United States to just try to create a way. Again, I'm a data visualization and information designer to link all the research projects that are going together and to try to even just highlight, you know, okay, there's the immune system, and then we're researching on that. And I'm very passionate about it. But I found that, you know, I really think that part of the reason why treatments have never stuck with me, you know, they didn't really make progress, was I really felt it in myself that there was something about my nervous system. And again, it's not saying that everything was in my head and I just had anxiety that I couldn't, you know, brush off, but that primarily really perhaps the way that my nervous system, for the type of person that I am, reacted to, you know, daily stimuli that I started to be afraid of, such as walking a little too much or foods. I mean, I think I started to develop a lot of fear around the things that would make me potentially feel worse. And, you know, I too never stopped trying to walk, but I've always felt that I was pushing too hard. And to me, it was not even the immediate feeling bad, but there's something in our illnesses that many of us experience that is called post-exertional malaise. That is the delayed reaction that can then, you know, put you in bed for weeks after an exertion. And I think that fear, I mean, not that I don't have that fear anymore because I'm trying to extend my envelope of tolerance, and I still have that, but I'm really trying to fight it. So long story short, at the end of last year, two things happened for me that then developed into others. So I finally found one practitioner. He's a doctor. He's an internist and functional medicine doctor that I have waited to see for like a long time, like a year. And I finally felt that, you know, for some reasons, when I met him, I'm like, that's it. I'm not going to any other doctors. I'm not looking myself anymore for treatments and, you know, suggesting things and being always and constantly in the lookout for new things to try. I'm going to let him drive on the medical, you know, avenue. And then I'm going to try to work on myself for how I can in terms of helping my nervous system recognize that certain things that I think are really a threat, and that it's been a threat for me, are really not so dangerous. And so I think that like the combination of not having the responsibility to cure myself medically with this doctor, and at the same time understanding that there is a lot, and it's a lot of work that we have to do every day. So it's not just like an easy, oh, let's journal for 15 minutes and do a meditation. It's like starting nervous system work and brain retraining. You know, I mean, I probably wouldn't say that I'm seeing exceptional physical results just yet, but I'm definitely seeing that my attitude have changed from the one of fear and that feeling that you constantly have that this is profoundly unfair. Why is this happening to me? This shouldn't be happening to me.
Yeah.
Shifting into, all right, here's where I am. What can I do to just have hope, move forward? And I mean, we can talk about brain training and everything, but I feel that this is a little bit of an attitude shift that is helping me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's it right there. That message that you just said, it's like that piece of acceptance where you're like, okay, this is where I'm at right now. What can I do that's going to help me feel, it's not even feel better symptomatic wise, but just feel better about where I'm at. What are these self-care activities that I'm going to be able to do to help my brain, my body just ease into this moment, even if I'm symptomatic. And that's the key about, the brain retraining stuff and mind body stuff. It's not about fixing symptoms, because I just posted this thing today. I don't know if you saw it yet. And this is one of the things we talk about is when you're constantly trying to fix your illness and fix your symptoms, and we all feel like we have to do it. It actually allows the illness and the symptoms to linger because you're now focusing on it. It's becoming stressful. You're dysregulating your nervous system by doing it. But the contrast is like when you accept and you're just like, okay, today is what it is. I do not feel well. My symptoms are here. It's okay that they're here today. And you just accept and ease into that. The paradox of it is that they sometimes resolve in that state and frame of mind versus the I have to fix,
And yes, I really want to say something here. So I was thinking, I would like to post this interview on my Instagram account. And I'm thinking that my followers who think that I'm all data will be like, what is she talking about all of a sudden, this mind body thing? But honestly, the reason why I actually got into that is because I deeply understood the scientific theory behind it, which is, as you were hinting at, Joe, is that there are pathways that are created in your brain. And I mean, I'm going to do a terrible job explaining it, but that are pathways like highways that like starts to send signals. And the more you send signals through those neural pathways, the more you're reinforcing them. And so, for example, for 4 years, every single time that I tried to walk more than 2,000 steps, then I would feel horrible the next day. I would link this feeling horrible to these, exactly, like to the activity that I've done or to the thing that I ate or to whatever was happening that I stand for too long. And like my brain would say, oh, okay, so let's just reinforce the fact that this is happening. And it's very scientific. It's not woo-woo. And at the same time, and those pathways are really, really hard to break. Imagine that there are highways going on in there. But what we're trying to do is methodical brain retraining by redirecting the focus on something else and by just letting the symptoms be in a way without obsessing over them and without giving them a meaning, is we're pretty much like step by step, like slowly destroying those pathways and building new ones. Right. And again, I did a terrible job explaining it probably, but I guess what I'm saying is I could get it. Because I believe in the science and, there's like, I read the book, The Brain That Changes Itself and Neuroplasticity, and it's very fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. And this is kind of what we talked about is those neural pathways you were talking about. It's kind of like when you get in a car and you drive to a destination and you don't remember the drive at all. Like you got there and you're just on autopilot. Your subconscious mind just does it. And that's kind of what happens as we give way to fear, as we begin to think about our symptoms and obsess. The automatic thought is, oh my gosh, this is going to kill me. Oh my gosh, I might pass out. Like we resort to the worst case scenario and we get there so fast. So retraining our brain, and what we notice is as we get older, there's always opposition in our minds. Like Joe and I talk about this all the time, is our brain doesn't wake up in the morning and say, hey, today's going to be great. $1 million is going to fall from the sky and I'm going to get a new car. No, it's like, what could go wrong today? Like, it's raining outside. Like I'm going to be late for work. And that's a lot of that society stress, I think, plays into the dysregulation. So this is kind of what we've seen in specifically people with long COVID. Is I don't believe that any of this is anxiety based. Now, I do believe after the opportunistic infection comes in and we're in this constant state of stress, that then the floods of anxiety come through. I don't think it's the anxiety comes and then, the long COVID. No, that's not how I see it. But when you get long COVID or you get an opportunistic infection, you hit a wall. Life, as you know, it stops completely. You develop these fears, these phobias, regarding your symptoms. And then, because it's all we feel, it's all we think about, it's all we talk about, it's all we research. We're going to doctor's appointments. And that becomes our identity. It becomes everything that we think and we talk about. And what I've noticed is as we begin to shift, as we, like I said, I think that there's a big difference in healing. So if you take, for instance, an individual that's been cut and you put him in an environment where he's happy or maybe he's in love or whatever, science dictates that that cut is going to heal exponentially faster. Now you take a body that gets that same cut and you put them in a stressful environment where they're in a chronic state of fight or flight, when they're in a state of dysregulation, and the cut takes forever to heal because our immune system and our immune function is suppressed because of the dysregulation. So I feel like when people get sick, what happens, and when we're able to, and I'm all for it. If there's a viable treatment that helps people get better, I'm all about it. I unfortunately chased so many different rabbit holes, and so many different treatments and doctors, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, just, searching for answers. And, you invest your money in something, and next thing you go there and you're left with more, questions than you had when you went in. And when I realized, all right, what if a large part of this is something that I could do that could give me a large reduction in symptoms? So I started doing the work, and I noticed, and like I said, we're very authentic. Am I 100% better? Absolutely not. But I am data driven like you, and I needed to see the results. So I stopped talking to the people that were sick, and I started talking to the people that had gotten better and started compiling data. Okay, what is it that you guys have done to get better? And there was always 4 commonalities. Movement's huge. I believe once I started movement, because I stopped movement for a long time. And while this isn't, a medical opinion, I believe when you have POTS, what happens is we stop moving. We stay on the couch. We're not getting oxygen and blood flow and nutrients. And we don't want to get up because we feel like trash. But the longer that we sit there, I think the worse that we begin to feel. And we wait and we wait and we wait. And I waited for doctors and I waited for doctors. And I didn't realize there is so much a part of this that I have to do to heal. Like, and if I get to 75, 80%, and there's a doctor that says, hey, look, I have a verifiable treatment that's working on 80% of the patients that I'm seeing, sign me up, dude. I'm all about it. But when I realized that I did the work, and this is the part that pisses people off, and I kind of love it because I was so resistant to it. I'm like, I'm sick. I'm on the couch. I say this all the time. If I were to take my phone out of this room and out to the couch, you can see the indentation from where I used to lay all the time, and just look out the window. And that's how I thought I was healing, was taking these medications and waiting for these doctors to help me. But when I got up, when I decided to move, when I decided to reframe my mind to, I believe that I'm healing, and then actually reading and investing my time and studying the science behind it, it was astounding. So I went from not moving at all, from the couch to the bed to the couch. I would smile when I saw people because I didn't want them to know how sick I was, to now I travel, now I thrive, now I lift weights, now I do that. Do I have a down day? Yeah, I do sometimes. And I'm all right with that. But I'm thankful because of the work that I chose to do that's helped me get better. And that's kind of the same thing with having with Joe. And that's kind of our message is, while, they're definitely don't, give up all faith in the medical system. But I think that once we realize that there's a large component inside of us that we have to feel, that, when our nervous system's completely dysregulated, and a lot of factors come into play, like, we're overwhelmed by jobs, by stress. Never in humankind have we ever dealt with the level of stress that we're dealing with now. Not everybody eats a poor diet, but, the large majority of society eats terrible. In your case, you were exercising. I'm sure that your diet was impeccable too. Yeah. But, there's stress. We're all there. Stress and so many other factors. All these things come, and then you take a big virus like COVID, and it's just like, boom, everybody gets down. And I think that's the difference why some people get long COVID, and I know that genetics can also play a role. But I also think that there's other factors, and it's ultimately our nervous system. When we're in that state of dysregulation, our body does not fight off as it should. So as we are able to regulate our nervous system, I feel like our immune system starts working better. Our gut starts working better. We stop reacting to these foods and all that. And when I first came in this and when I was first introduced to it, I'm like, that's hogwash. Like, show me the science. And that's where I dove. And I was like, wow, this is astounding. And I started doing the work, and it wasn't quick. By no means was it quick or easy, but I started waking up and I started having what I call like glimmers. I would start having moments where I was like, wow, I don't feel lightheaded when I'm standing. I'm no longer getting heart palpitations. I'm not dizzy. I'm not on the couch anymore. And then I would go, like we talked about, the ebbs and flows, the fact that it's not linear. And then about 3 or 4 months in, I remember calling Joe up and be like, dude, I had part of a good day. Like, and I didn't know what that meant. In 17 years, I'd never had a good day. And from there, it was like 6, 8 months out. I was like, bro, I had a full good day. I'm having good days. Yeah. And, then I'd call him again like a week later, but dude, I feel terrible today. And that's kind of the dip in it. But what I realized is I am the one that's responsible to get myself out of there, that ultimately I can hit the reset button. So if I allow that bad day to pull me down symptomatically the next day, surprisingly, I'm going to feel exponentially worse because of what I'm thinking in here. Is there a real infection inside my body? Absolutely. But by me dysregulating my nervous system and pulling myself down, I think that it allows that infection to manifest, to come out, to be a little bit stronger. So sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent.
No, it was necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have so many things to say. I feel one thing that I also want to say, just to contextualize this, I think what we are doing is very hard work. It's really hard to change your attitude. Like, I think, I don't remember, maybe we were having a conversation and one of you said, or I don't know if I made it up, but like being sick is easier than actually healing in a way. And I feel, I don't know, like there's different ways of working on your nervous system. There's different brain retraining programs, and not that everybody do brain retraining. I feel for the one that I'm doing right now, which is DNRS, it's like 1 hour of practice every single day, and you commit and you practice this particular, they're called rounds that, in the beginning you feel like in the cult and they're a little weird, but then you really do understand that you are changing the way that your brain thinks and reacts to stimuli. And you do that, but that's not it. It's like every single time that you're bothered by your symptoms and that you would want to go into despair and like start thinking, see, I do most of the time. I have a lot of symptoms, but like you have to just not give in to the symptoms and like start to just go down the meanders of what it means and how I will feel today. It's just like, it's there. It's okay. And you redirect your focus. It's a constant 24/7 practice for some of us that have 24/7 manifestations of symptoms. And I do still have a lot of limitations. I am so far from recovered. But I do see those glimmers that you mentioned. That's and good. Like there are moments when I feel myself. Like, and there might be minutes or half an hour where I truly feel like I am myself. And it's incredible. And I feel that for the people that have not experienced this, they might have a big question mark in their head because it's like, what does it mean? Yourself. It just feels like I feel healthy for 30 minutes. And not healthy like I could go run a marathon, but healthy as in I sit here, I'm clear in my head, I'm engaged in the conversation, I'm not necessarily too bothered by what's going on in my body. And those are what are giving me hope that I can have more and more. And maybe that in some way I can also increase my activity, try to go on walks, socialize with my friends, travel. I haven't been traveling for such a long time. I haven't seen my mom who's in Italy for such a long time. Head back to exercising. That's a dream. And I think that sometimes I felt that it was impossible. And now I'm like, I'll do yoga again. I'll snowboard again. I don't know when.
You will. You absolutely will. You absolutely will. And
I would tell you that you're not going to, because I heard it so many times. So you're not going to. And
don't listen to if anyone's telling you that you're not going to be able to do this sort of stuff. This is where you gotta use your discernment or whatever, because this is where we'll go against some of the medical establishment. They want to. There is this drive to keep people sick in a lot of ways, in normal medicine. Not to say all of it is like that, but there is some of that. And it's good to hear these stories of people that are healing, of other people like you that have gone through this, and that they've gotten out of it. And that's one of the things that I did. And when I first got sick years ago, was like I had to hear these stories of people, because I had a lot of the doctors and other people, and just other people around me being like sick for years, and just, we're not sure what to do. It might be something that you're stuck with for the rest of your life, all of that sort of stuff. But I had to find these people, these other people that were healing and getting better. And I'm talking like the worst case scenario, people with MS and all of this other stuff, and like these people that implemented a lot of this mind body healing stuff. And I started seeing results myself. I know you had mentioned you're in that state where you're still having a lot of rough days, but you have these glimmers. The one thing that I want to tell you, and I'm sure Josh would say the same thing, is keep going. A lot of people on this journey, when they are healing, they will get discouraged after 4 or 5, 6 months. They'll just give up and be like, it's not working for me, and there's got to be something else I'm missing, and all that sort of stuff. And like we said, there isn't an infection. There is a lot of this other stuff, inflammation going on, but do not give up. Keep going on the good and bad days, because if Josh and I would have given up, like, we wouldn't have our lives back. Like, we saw the glimmers as progress, even in the down moments. And one thing we tell one another on this journey as we're going, because he'll have some down days, and I'll just be like, hey, do you remember last week when you were out living your life and you didn't feel symptomatic at all? Remember that. This is going to come back. And that's the way it is. We tell one another that.
And it always does come back.
Yeah, it does. Like, again, like he was out living life. Tomorrow we're going to, like I said, a festival, a concert for 2 days. Or I'm going for 2 days. He's going for a full day. But, now we have our lives back. And it's a testament to just sticking with it through the ups and the downs of this, and just staying consistent, staying patient with yourself. The one thing we didn't cover yet too is I really want to talk about some of your work. Obviously, what you do and everything like that it's awesome. Coming from my own world, some people know I was a graphic designer and art director. Everyone in the graphic design world knows Pentagram, knows everyone in the creative field knows Pentagram, and knows all the work that, they put out and all the cool stuff. You had a chance to do something. I want to know, like, was this when you first got sick or whatever? But if you want to talk about the New York Times, piece that you did on long COVID and the data, design that you did, it's a really cool thing. And,
it was really, really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. And, because it's highly visual, maybe we'll put a link to this so that people can see it.
Yeah, we'll put a link to it, and we'll have some, clips that come up.
Yeah. I'm a partner at Pentagram, which is like, this very cool design firm. I feel very, very lucky. And also, I feel incredibly lucky that I have been able to work through these. It's been really hard, because it's like, all that I've done, like, I haven't done anything in the past 4 years besides working, and I've been pushing, but I've been able to do it. And I also really, really want to credit my partners for the support, and my team of amazing people that have been really helping me out, throughout all of these. But so I think the beauty of Pentagram is that we have client work, and we work with big clients, but at the same time, every partner is very much allowed to do whatever they want with their creativity, their time, as long as, in the end of the year, you pay your overhead, you pay the bills, and you put out quality work. And so, in my long COVID journey, of course, I have started to collect data. And so, like, since 2020, I've started to populate this huge, ever-growing spreadsheet that, collecting the different symptoms that I was experiencing. And then I used to I used to wear a smartwatch that I'm not wearing anymore. That felt like such a liberation, honestly. But, then I started to look at all the biometrics, my heart rate variability, when my heart rate will go up, my oxygen, my sleep, and all of these. And then I would log, like, at some point, I would log everything that I ate, and then all the medications, and then the steps that I would take. I mean, a little bit of an obsessive account of what was going on. And it served two purposes to me. One, to try and figure out things that doctor couldn't figure out. And I mean, I don't know, naively, I thought, I can crack this, I just can do it myself. And on the other hand, honestly, it's been serving me up until I stopped doing it, just to make me feel a semblance of control into something that has been completely uncertain. So long story short, like a year ago, I was actually, no, let's say 9 months ago or so, been looking into all these data, and at the same time, reading all the pieces about long COVID that, have been going on out there. You usually just see a list of 12 to 20 symptoms. And like, I think what was missing in terms of depicting what a chronic illness looks like is a detailed daily account of what really it means to experience symptoms and limitations 24/7, because healthy people might see those articles and say, well, I was tired too a couple of weeks after COVID, or yeah, I have headaches too. I have nausea as well. But like, it's like so not like these. And so what I've done is I wanted to create a piece that just could, again, give some real visibility to how it feels to live with this. And I pitched it to the New York Times, and they agreed to publish it. And how it presents is an interactive, sort of like one of those articles that you scroll. And as you read my story, you start to see all these like painted brush strokes that populate the canvas. And at some point, you start to understand that a certain color is a certain symptoms, because the brush also then kind of like poetically highlights the symptom that you're talking about, that I'm talking about in the story. And then at some point, I show a video of my spreadsheet to really just show all the amount of things that I've collected. And then, at a certain point, you understand without a clear legend, because that's the point of my piece, that, pretty much I've been experiencing it daily, because you see a fully painted calendars of the past 4 years where, maybe if you want to look for a positive thing, you're looking for the empty days, like means the days without symptoms that are just so few. And then, at some point in the piece, there's a real account of all the doctors I've seen, the medical procedures I've had, the number of medications and supplements I've tried. And it's this like overwhelming scrolling in a way that though hands with the brushes that kind of like opens up to a wide canvas, saying we all deserve to have our blank canvas full of possibilities. And also, the other part of it is that I asked members of the long COVID community, to hundreds of people responded, to fill in this one prompt. I hope I will be able to blank again. And it's so moving, because people are like, I hope I'll be able to walk my dog, to play with my children, to just, go to the mailbox at the end of my street. And so, I just thought that I needed to do this. And the response have been pretty overwhelming, with thousands of people that wrote me on how they feel seen, and they have something to send their loved ones and family to really show what it means. And that they got for the first time a response that is like, I really had no idea. How can I help? So I'm going to pause here. I think that though, that was something that I really thought I needed to do, and I'm very glad I did it. Looking at it right now, I wish I could myself put a little bit more hope into that, but this is complete where I was at the time. And so maybe there's a place in the future for something slightly different. But I'm not there yet. So.
Yeah. Well, it was an absolutely brilliant piece. I loved going through it. I was absolutely amazed by your work. And like I said, I'm not in the graphic realm, but I remember just going through the article and just being like, wow, this is one of the coolest things I've ever scrolled through. It's really, really, really brilliant.
Yeah, you did an amazing job. And I think, you had mentioned, you wish you would have changed it or whatever. But I do think, bringing that awareness, is key. It's part of this as well. Just as like, Josh was involved in advocacy for Lyme and all that sort of stuff. And, although, he spent a lot of time trying to bring awareness, towards, Capitol Hill and all this stuff, to get policies changed and stuff like that. It also brings awareness to like, look, there's a lot of people out here suffering, right? There's a lot of people out here struggling with this. It needs to be taken seriously, but also now it gives people that lens of like, okay, there's other people that see me and that understand that like, this is a real thing. This is not just like a little bit of, a longer cough and like a little bit more fatigue. Like this is serious. That stuff.
Yeah, that validation is important.
Yeah, it's important. It's important.
It's like, isn't it? I feel that, maybe not now, because I feel that as you connect with people that are, healing. But I think throughout of these, as much as your partner or your mom or your friends just want to be supportive, but the truth is like they truly, if they live with you on a daily basis, they truly have no idea on what it means, or even just for our mental health, to just really not know like what's going to be tomorrow and having so many limitations and fears. And so, I think I just also want to point out how lonely it is sometimes.
Absolutely.
And if I could, with that piece, just make people feel a little less lonely, that feels like a success.
No, that's a great thing.
It is great. And I think in closing, that's super important. I think on your healing journey, well, first and foremost, if you're listening to this, nobody's too far gone to get better.
Yeah.
You're never too far gone to get better. After 17 years, I had all but given out. You have a lot of people, and we like to talk about the real, that struggle with the idea of wanting to stay on Earth, because it is a very, very dark place to be, and it is alone, and you do suffer a lot by yourself. Even if you have a spouse or family or friends or a significant other, it doesn't matter, because they can't quite relate to what's going on inside of you and the terror of waking up every day. But the beauty of it is things can change, things can get better. And that's why we believe that it's incredibly important to be surrounded by community that is not only one, healing, but two, validates you. And I don't think that we need continued validation, because I think that reaffirms it. But once you're validated and you have people in your circle that believe you're going to get better, that talk about getting better, that is their focus, is getting better, I think so much shifts in that. And unfortunately, what happens is, I think there's a lot of great information in the forums and stuff, but when we do get sick, we gravitate to Facebook groups and stuff like that. And unfortunately, the majority of the stuff that you see is these people that are suffering, that want answers, that and it turns into kind of like an echo chamber. So finding people that are healing, that want to heal, that is their priority, is so, so, so key. And, I can't tell you how much community, and even having Joe on the healing journey, hey man, get up, you got this, bro, like do the work, has been so instrumental in my healing journey, man. Without it, I don't know where I'd be. Definitely.
Yeah, that support is key. It's so key. And I know that, with what you did, I'm sure you helped bring some people together, and hopefully they're utilizing that support in that sort of way to help one another, to lift one another up. Because that is so good. That you need that support, and that that empowerment, to feel empowered on your healing journey versus feeling like a victim. So I know a lot of us, we get in that victim mentality when we're chronically ill. It's part of it. We feel hopeless. But like Josh said, there is hope, and there is true healing happening for people of all walks of life that are dealing with long COVID, chronic Lyme disease, chronic fatigue syndrome, all of these things. And everyone can get better. There's no one that's like too sick, has had it for too long. Take Josh for an example, 17 years straight, we see that sort of stuff, and people getting their lives back and getting better. I just, before we end, I kind of just want to give you a chance to talk about, where you're at on your healing journey, and anything that you feel like you want to share, with either what you're doing, in your life, or, just kind of where you're at, and, if you want to speak on that.
Thank you. I mean, this morning, as I was thinking about this recording, I thought, what is that I have to offer to your listeners? I'm so far from recovered. I am probably 30% of where I would like to be. But, something that I think it might be really, really small, but I wanted to say is that, of course, healing, I think, is possible, but shifting your mindset and truly feeling hope is possible. And I know that, again, it's small, because I'm not saying, hey, I can run a marathon now and you can too. Like, I'm not there. But like in the moment where you're in true constant despair and you only see the worst case scenario, and you might have glimmers of hopes, but you don't believe it in the end. I mean, it's pretty bad. It's a really pretty bad place. And I mean, the one thing that I can tell some people that might be there is that just having hope is wonderful. It changes everything. You can start to see yourself healed. You can start to dream again. And again, as much as the road, I know that it's like up and down and it's long, and I don't know where I'll be in a year or anything. But I just really want to say that at least this like change of mindset can happen. And truly also then believing that you have agency in your healing is huge, because when you are in the depth of the despair and you're housebound, homebound, you feel that everybody else has the perfect life and you're there alone and you're desperately waiting for somebody to save you. I think that's pretty bad too, because you feel that you have no control on what's happening to you. And I just right now, of course, I feel that things are not under control for me, but I know that I do have agency in this and I believe it and I want to really stick with it. So I don't know if there's anything that I can say. Again, I know it's very small. The recovery stories, that's probably what I have to offer.
No, this is, people need to hear it from, people that are just getting started on their journey to the people that are, completely healed. We want to highlight all of it, and I think that it's key what you brought up, just having that hope and that belief that things can shift, even if it's just your internal state, just that, okay, I'm not, gonna let myself fall into despair and just, pain and misery all about my illness. Just even that little shift, that shift in mindset is so key for healing.
It is. And what's going to be beautiful about this, Giorgia, is when we interview you again, when you're healed and you're doing better, because that's what it's going to happen. So to be able to see the contrast between the two videos and everything like that, like I fully believe it. I'm believing with you. Like I'm rooting for you. So that's the contrast between the two is going to be absolutely incredible.
Amazing. And you know what? Because one of my goals is to travel as much as I can when I get better. I'll be in person with you guys. We'll do like an
would love that.
Yeah, that's the one thing too is, having goals again, having, when you get chronically ill, people forget to have these goals and to envision them.
Most people stop living. And that's, I applaud you because you've kept going.
No, and that's key. So thank you so much. We'll try to keep this under now. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. I know you feel like you're not healed and you're not giving people hope, but I guarantee you when people listen to this, they'll hear your story. They'll be at the beginning, of their journey, and they don't, people don't always want to resonate with the people that have already gone through it all. It's good to hear from people that are still going through it, but they have that shift in mindset. They're persevering on, and I think you really embody that sort of. Even though I know you're struggling at times, you do embody that hope, and you give people that hope and that belief that they can get better even while you're struggling. So I think
for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us.
To talk to you guys. I love having you. I could keep talking to you forever. It's just really beautiful.
It's been one of our easiest flowing podcasts. It's just super easy to talk to and such a pleasant person. So
Thank you.